Next door's got music on, but there's nothing to be done about that. But we're on the dance floor. Hey everyone, it's Fionn. Welcome back to my channel, Cruising Eva Chanel. I hope you're all well and ready to hear about the books that I read in November. Don't get too excited because it was a pretty poor reading month for me. But it's okay. I thought it was going to start off really well because I started off finishing a book in 2 days. Finished it on the 1st of November, which was Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. I have never read Harry Potter before. I have attempted to watch the first 3 films and fell asleep in all of them. That was probably like 6 years ago now. And it wasn't until recently that I've actually started to develop an interest in it. I wouldn't buy them, but because I don't want to support J.K. Rowling. However, my sister had them sitting around gathering dust, so I decided to give them a go. And I did enjoy this, I did. Did I? The thing is, I feel like this book is very nostalgic for a lot of people, even if they've only seen the films. But if you grew up as a child who absolutely loved Harry Potter, then this is just going to be a beautiful experience for you, and I wasn't that child. So for me, this was like a little story about a boy finding out he's a wizard. Like, it just didn't feel, I don't know, like, you can tell it's a children's book, which is absolutely fine because that's what it is. But I think if this came out now and it was just this one book on its own, people my age wouldn't love it, and I don't think I would be that interested in picking it up. But because it's a whole franchise, there's a lot more to it. So I think I enjoyed this knowing how much excitement there was to come. Like, obviously, I don't really know what's going to happen, but I know that people love it, so hopefully I'll fall in love with it too. But yeah, I don't really have a lot to say about this, and I've really struggled to rate it. Like I said, I finished it on the 1st of November, and I still am not sure what I'm going to rate it. I think it's going to be about a 3.5, 3.75. I think more like a 3.5. But I am going to carry on. I've started the second one last night. I don't have hold of the others yet, but apparently my sister does have them. She's not sure exactly where. So hopefully I will continue it and start to really love this series. I would love that. And then I can watch all the films and really enjoy them too. Fingers crossed. Next, I picked up a book that I got from the library. Basically, I went to the library and they didn't have anything that I wanted. But I thought, if I leave, I will find it really hard to come back. If I leave without taking anything, I'll find it really hard to come back. So I picked up 2 random books that I'd never heard of, and this was one of them. This is a YA book. It's called Tiger Milk by Stephanie de Velasco, and it's translated from German to English by Tim Moore. And I don't know if something got lost in translation, but this book was not it for me. It's kind of like, it's 2 teenagers going through some really awful stuff. Like, they're not thriving. They are very much not living a life of privilege. Like, I don't know if it would be considered poverty. I don't really remember enough about it, but they weren't doing great, and their families weren't. They definitely didn't have a lot of money. It's basically about their experiences of growing up, kind of teenage rebellion. But this book has so many characters. I could not keep up with the characters, who they were, or the storyline. I just didn't really know what was going on. It also has no speech marks, which a lot of people seemed to take issue with that from the reviews I read. Personally, I didn't, because that's a stylistic choice. That's fine, that's the author's decision. And I actually found it really clear who was talking and when. What I did take issue with was that there seemed to be barely any other punctuation. There were no question marks. Even if someone said a question, you'd be like, "What are you doing?" she said. "You look like shit, why are you like that?" And it was so monotone. That's the part I found really difficult, was that, like, if I was having a conversation with someone and they were talking like that, I would switch off because it would be really boring. And yeah, basically that's what happened in this. It was just annoying me. They sounded so passionless, and just, yeah, I didn't like that. Also, around one point, for like 2 pages, it went into the past tense, but the whole rest of the book that I read was in the present tense, which I thought was really weird. But I DNF'd this at about 110 pages. It just wasn't for me. Next up, I finished a book that I've been reading for quite a few weeks. This is one of my uni set books, so it wasn't one that I picked up purely for my own pleasure, and it wouldn't be one that I would pick up for that reason either. It's a children's book, and it's kind of a really light fantasy. It's quite adventurous. for an 8-year-old or something who wants a sense of adventure. It's called Tom's Midnight Garden by Philippa Pierce. I think quite a lot of people end up studying this in school. It was published in 1958. I'd never heard of it, but I think I don't know if it's considered a classic, but it's definitely up there. It's basically about this boy Tom who goes to stay with his uncle and aunt for the summer and discovers a secret garden. But let me read the thing to you. When Tom is sent to stay at his aunt and uncle's house for the summer, he resigns himself to weeks of boredom. But as he lies awake in his bed, he listens to the grandfather clock chiming downstairs in the hall. 11, 12, 13. 13! Tom races down the stairs and finds outside the back door a wonderful garden. A garden everyone told him didn't exist. Tom's Midnight Garden is full of magic and adventure, and children too. Are they ghosts, or is it Tom who is really the ghost? So like I said, this was first published in 1958, and you could tell, but it wasn't awful. I actually thought the idea of it was quite fun. It's just not something that I would pick up for my own enjoyment, but it's definitely not the worst book I could have been forced to read for my studies. But yeah, I can certainly see the appeal for some children. This is another one that I just don't know how to rate. I think it's going to be a solid 3, but I don't know. Next up I read It Was Always You by Emma Cooper. I started this on the 4th of November. And this is the last book I finished this month. It took me ages to read this. I chose it because my job prompt for the month was a book with a prologue. I had quite a lot of options, but this one is set at a bonfire and it has fireworks, and I started it on the 4th. It was obviously about to be bonfire night. So I was like, perfect timing. Took me 2 weeks to read it. But that's not to say I didn't enjoy it. It just took me a while to get into it, and I wasn't kind of leaning towards reading it in free moments. It wasn't until towards the end that it started to get really exciting and emotional. I'm going to read you the blurb. On the last night in October 1999, the clocks went back and Ella and Will's love began. A teenage Ella sat around a bonfire drinking with her future husband and her oldest friend Cole. As Ella wandered away from the group, she found herself leaning against a derelict archway before passing out. The next day, Ella remembered fractured images of a conversation with a woman in a green coat and red scarf, but dismissed it as a drunken dream. 23 years later, with her marriage to Will in trouble and Cole spiralling out of control, Ella opens a gift which turns her life upside down, a green coat and red scarf. When she looks in the mirror, the woman from the archway is reflected back at her. As the last Sunday in October arrives, Ella is faced with the choice. Would she choose a different life if she could do it again? Now, I didn't have all of that in my mind as I was reading it, just kind of the first part of it, so a lot of it came as a surprise, but I've now realised it wasn't supposed to be. I think the main thing is that to know for this is, this may be a tiny spoiler, but I don't think it actually will change your experience whatsoever. The woman in the green coat and a red scarf, she then goes to see a hypnotist to try and reclaim those memories, to figure out what the hell is going on. So if you're very much not into hypnotism and you don't want to read about that, then this wouldn't be the book for you. I actually didn't mind it. The only thing I took issue with was that there's just no way in this day and age you'd get that appointment so fast. Like, she booked it and then she went the same week. I can't ever imagine that happening. But that's kind of an inconsequential detail that wouldn't have really worked out for the book if she had to have a 7-month wait, so, you know. I liked that I had an idea the whole way through of what was going to happen, and then there was kind of a rocky bit where it was like, is that going to happen? I actually thought she was trying to make it seem like that throughout, and then it got to, but I felt like I knew, and then it got to a point where I was like, oh, actually, now I'm actually not sure, and then I'm not going to tell you which way it went, but ultimately, I was happy with the way it went, although it was emotional. I will word it like that. I'm pretty sure there were tears. There were definitely like, oh my gods. Yeah, it's a pretty good book. It is long though, 432, so not super long, but not super quick either. And then finally I finished up an audiobook of Matilda by Roald Dahl, narrated by Kate Winslet. And I just got this as a fun little children's book to listen to that I don't really need to listen to super intensely. And I enjoyed it. The only thing is, like I love the story of Matilda, I love the film, so I knew what was coming, and I guess that was kind of nostalgic for me, but not overly. I thought Kate Winslet's narrating was good, but the accents I thought were weird. Like, why do Matilda and Miss Honey have wildly different accents? Miss Honey had a very clearly northern accent, Northern England I mean, but then they said they lived a 40-minute bus ride from Reading, and I was like, well, why? And she said that she'd lived there her whole life and grew up in that same village, and that irritated me. And you can tell with Roald Dahl the writing is quite old-fashioned. I have seen Lena Norms posted a video about like letting him die, and I didn't want to watch it because I didn't want my love for Roald Dahl stories to dissipate, but I think I might actually watch it now, especially because it will line quite well with my uni work. But yeah, I am intrigued by what she has to say about him, but also it will probably be disappointing, which is why I've put it off so far. But that's everything. Those are all the books that I read in November. Like I said, it wasn't a great reading month, but it's okay, I'm happy enough with it, and let's just see what the next month brings. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!